Hello and welcome to this introduction to fiddles on JSFridge. We are just going to jump right into it. As you can see, there's a button up here called Create Fiddle, and I'll click that now. So when you create a fiddle, you are redirected to the fiddle URL, which you can instantly just share with anyone. Now, since I clicked Create Fiddle, I am linked to this fiddle. I have edit privileges, and as you can see, I am in edit mode at the moment. And I will continue to have this privilege as long as I don't uninstall my browser or format my hard drive or whatever. Um, uh, but if you want to link to your fiddle like forever, you would have to log in first, and then your fiddle will connect to your account and you will always have edit privileges. So what we're going to do here is just look at what we can do in a fiddle. As you can see, we have an index.html file here, and we have access to adding some new files. We also have our sandbox, where it currently just says hello world, and we have our console, which doesn't display anything at the moment. So what we're going to do now is just simply add some files and look at how we work with the fiddle. Then we're going to look at the console, and we are also going to look at the API configurator, which you can use to create a simulated backend. And we'll end this introduction by showing off the recording functionality of the fiddle. So let me first add a style file here. I'll go to styles and I will call that main CSS. And we will type some CSS here. Let's just change the color of the body to red. And I'll say that, though nothing happens because we of course have to include this main CSS file in index.html. So let's do that now. Link style sheet, and the URL is main CSS. So when I save this now, you see that the color is red, and I can of course change it to whatever I want. And this is how you add files and include it in the HTML file, just like you would do in a normal project. So let's have a look at JavaScript here. I will add the main.js. And of course, we again have to include this into our project, main.js. And what we're going to do in this file is we're just going to try to console log something here. Let's console log an object which says foo bar, and we'll save that. And as we can see now, the console suddenly indicated that something happened. So if I click this now, we see that it actually logged out the object. And this is JSFridge's own console log that also works with recording content for your fiddle. So you can do whatever you want here. You can log arrays, and it will also give errors if you type something wrong. So if I say something like that, it gives a reference error and points to the correct file and the correct line. You also have an API configurator available, and that's this button over here. So what this allows you to do is create like a simulated backend. And currently it supports CRUD, which means create, read, update, delete. And you can find that API on this API path. And you of course have to type the full path yourself. So I will add users here. So what happens now is that I get these paths and these methods available to do CRUD operations. And at the bottom here, I have my default collection on the simulated backend. So what you can do now is, of course, do a get to API users, a post to API users. It will automatically add an ID for you. You can do a get to a specific entity, a put, patch, and delete, of course. When adding default data, you get help by a validator. So now it's not valid JSON, but now it is valid JSON, but I have not added an ID to my entity. So if I do that now, ID, say 0, and let's just add a name to this entity. Let's just use my name, and I can save this. So what we can do now is go to index here, and let's add jQuery just for convenience. And I have copied that to my clipboard, and just like that. And let's now do a get to this path, API users. And I will receive the users, and I can use the console to log that out. Saving that, and now we see that I got my entity. And if I would go to users 0, we would get 1 user here, and I save that, and we see we get that 1 user. And again, you can do a post, you can do a put and delete and all this stuff. And when somebody else uses the fiddle, they will get their own version of this API. So it's not that like an API for the fiddle through all the usage. It's specific to each person going into the fiddle. So let's jump into the last part, which is recording. Now you don't have to do a recording on a fiddle, but if you do, it makes it easier for people to understand what you're trying to explain. And maybe you just want to explain the setup of the fiddle itself, or maybe you want to do something while you talk about it, which makes it even easier for people to understand why you're doing it and how they would use that in their own situations. So what you do is hit the record button, and the browser asks you for permission to access the microphone, and I'll hit allow. Now a good tip here is to mute the speakers while you do this recording. Just a pro tip, but now we are actually recording. So whatever I do now, like if I do something to the API here, let's change back to users, and I save that. And maybe we will go to main CSS. We will change the color to red and get out of the console to see that change. And we can go into index and hello world, what's up? Something like that, and save that. So what I'm going to do now is just stop this recording. And while this is compressing and uploading to the server, I can review this course, this fiddle. I'll hit the play button, and now I can hear my voice in the background, and we start to see a live playback of what's happening. And what's really cool about that is that when somebody looks at this playback, they can pause it at any time, they can jump around in it, and they can just do whatever changes they want to. And we're going to look at that in just a second. But as you can see, it plays back everything we did, from saving files, changing files, going in and out of the console. If we did change it to the API, it would be reflected. So that is recording. So let's just have a look at how this would look like if you pass this URL to somebody else, like on Stack Overflow, just a friend or whatever. They would come to this display, which is the default display, and they would instantly be able to play back the fiddle or play around with the fiddle itself. So when I'm playing back, I cannot do any changes to the fiddle. But if I were to pause this fiddle now, I could go in here and I could, for example, let's go into main CSS and say purple instead, save that. And now we see the text is purple. But if I return to the playback, it changes to where it was and just continues playing. So this allows the people looking at your fiddle to play around with it without affecting your recording if you have a recording. So that's basically what I wanted to show you regarding fiddles. So I hope you try it out. And again, JSFridge is in beta, so there might be bugs, but please report them if you find any, or give some feedback on how you experience the fiddles on JSFridge.